Today on the show, I am joined by the fabulous Danny Greeves, and Danny is a coach at Danny Greeves Coaching and is author of 6 Steps to Self-Confidence. Hello there, Danny.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Bless you. Thank you for joining me. I'm not quite on my deathbed, but I've got COVID, so we'll do it remotely, be pleased to say.
Well, I admire you still going through with it.
We'll see how we go. Bless you. I loved that you reached out to me because you've got a story which I think so many of us have touched on in our life. So please do share your story of positive changes.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was younger, and my memories go back to like young school years, that's sort of where they kind of start. I was generally quite shy, mainly in terms of actually expressing myself and telling people how I really felt about them. So I had some really good friends and I have an amazing family, but one thing I struggled with was actually being able to speak up and express myself. And the way that this really held me back was when it came to trying to form relationships, like trying to date someone or trying to find a loving partner. And as this kind of rolled on, it started to develop into more of an issue where I'd start to feel quite anxious, I'd start to feel quite stressed, and I would tend to rely on things to give me a bit of a bump up. So like when I was at uni, you've got the backing of alcohol, so that usually blurs the lines a little bit. And I'd use that as a bit of a crutch to try and help me through. But all the way through, I was trying to find a relationship and it just wouldn't work for me or one way or another. And I got into the mindset of thinking, when I finally find a relationship, then I'll feel better about myself and I'll feel happier and my life will be better. And it turned out that the more I chased that and the more sort of intensively I tried to pursue it, the less I could actually be myself. And then the more I just tried to impress people, which made me feel worse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. And like, I'm quite a confident little soul, but I was painfully shy as a child, really bad. Couldn't make eye contact, nothing. And I was probably quite mute until about 16. But yeah, it is that we think we're trying to find who we are, then we're trying to find who we are by looking into someone else. So no, total sense, Danny. I love it.
Yeah. And it got to the point in my late 20s where I was like, okay, this has been going on for quite a while now. I've tried all of the tools that I have at my disposal. Maybe it's time that I actually get a little bit of help. And so I reached out to a coach who'd been highly recommended to me. We had one session, and then 10 days later, I met my wife. But also that set off a chain reaction where I really got deep on the personal development work, cleared a lot of that emotional baggage, and I realized that actually I could be more than fulfilled by myself, and then having a loving partner just added to it. So it completely reframed my position on what it meant to be in a relationship.
I think that's brilliant. Because I just know there's going to be loads of people out there just thinking, oh, well, I'm really shy and that's who I am. And they just go through the rest of their life. But that is a serious positive change. You're like, well, I've got the tools. Know what I want to do, but it's not happening. And I think that's really powerful. Did it feel a courageous thing to do, to seek help?
It felt a scary thing to do. I think that you could probably look back and say it was courageous after I'd done it. At the time, I was just thinking, it just got to the point where the pain became enough for me to take action. And I found this, particularly with my clients now, the hardest step is actually just making that first call or making that first email. And then once that's done, generally it's an upward trajectory. But I think there's so much resistance to that first call that actually there's another human being on the end of the phone. So once you have a little bit of a chat and that ball has started rolling, then I think positive change just really continues.
I love that. I have to ask, it sounds like super coach. You went to a coach and then 10 days later you meet your wife. That's a beautiful synchronicity. Tell us about that.
Well, I was on every online dating app under the sun. I was just doing everything that I could, and I was going on dates. So the issue wasn't that I couldn't find a date. The issue is that I just never really felt myself. And I was always trying to impress or hoping they would like me or going over the top. And looking back, I probably came across as quite needy because I was just trying to do my best. And then when I had my session, and it just kind of gave me a bit more permission to just be me. And then as soon as I relaxed and just said, okay, this is me, then everything changed. So I think, although there's an incredible amount of tools out there, that permission and actually helping yourself to be who you are, that's where so much of the change happens.
And so I know like a lot of people we've had on the show, they tend to be people pleasers. They think I don't really know who I am, but I'll please others. And that comes from like often a childhood. Is it anything from the childhood that made you shy or not understand yourself? Was it just one of those things?
I would say there's definitely contributing factors from when I was younger. I mean, there was certain times, particularly when I was younger, my hair was bright orange and I felt I stood out a little bit. And I sometimes got a little bit of teasing, nothing like compared to what some people get, but that made me really self-conscious. And the more self-conscious I became, the more I would sort of hold it in rather than dare to voice it. And then it just became a habit. I think so many of the things that we get stuck in is because we form a habit and we don't have the space or we don't have the guidance to just break the habit. And a lot of the time, that's what we need, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes, even though we might not like where we are, we know where we are, if that makes sense. So it might not be where we want to end up, but sometimes I think, oh, just for a quiet life, better the devil you know and all that. But I love the fact that you went and got help. So tell us more about that, about the coaching, what happens inside of that.
So that was the first time that I learned about something called an emotional memory image. And it was something that was completely brand new to me. And there isn't really much research on it. There's a few papers on it and there's a lot of data on it. And since then, I've been doing all my work around it. And actually, it was the work with the emotional memory image that actually got everything to shift. So would it be helpful if I explained that a little bit? Because probably people won't understand what that means.
That would have been my next question. I was thinking, it sounds fascinating. So I was breaking it down into the 3 words, Danny, thinking emotional. So it's something you're carrying, memories, how you remember an image. Yes, do it for us.
We can think of it as whenever you're involved in an event that you perceive to be threatening. So whether that's anxiety, whether it's stress, whether it's panic, whether it's fear, whatever that emotion is, if it's intense enough, your mind will store information about that event for future reference. So one of the nicest ways I was told about it is your mind almost bookmarks that event and it puts a high level of importance on it so that if you come near anything that reminds you of that initial event, your body sets off the alarm bells. And when we have that sort of teenage and growing up period, and I don't know anyone who hasn't had a few challenges, or you might say traumas, or you might say painful events. But what happens is our mind stores information about those, but it stores it at a below conscious level. So we're left with the feelings and the emotions, but we can't access the cause of it. So an emotional memory image is actually what the mind stores as a result of the event. And when we gain conscious access to that again, we can clear it, we can upgrade it, we can use lots of coaching tools, and then that allows all of that previous emotion to release. So in that first session, we worked with 1 or 2 emotional memory images from when I was younger. And as soon as they were cleared, it was just like a weight was off my shoulders. And that's the thing that made me think, okay, this physio career, because I was a physio at the time, this isn't what I want to do going forwards. This emotional memory image thing is possibly the coolest thing I've ever seen. So that's when I started to make the transition into helping people clear their own.
I like that. So are you hypnotized or are you just sitting there and you're wide awake and aware?
It's just conversational. So what you've probably noticed is when you chat to someone, sometimes they're looking at you and then at other times their eyes will drift away. So NLP would say, depending on their eye positions, you can get a sense of what's going on. But actually, there's something that happens in between those two moments that's really, really quick. But when we slow it down and bring attention to it, that's where the emotional memory image is. So the most extreme example of this is if you think of someone who has PTSD, that's when the emotional memory image has seeped into their conscious awareness. So it comes in and it intrudes and it affects them even when they don't want to. When they're milder, they're sitting in the background, but we don't actually know about them until you meet someone like me who helps you point them out. And then it's like, oh my God, how did I not see that? So that's why sessions are really, really fun, because it's not me doing anything. It's just helping someone learn about it. And I think that's kind of a fun way of approaching change.
I love the fact it's just conversational. And I did clinical hypnotherapy, Danny, but even I'm thinking, I love that.
And don't get me wrong, there's elements where I introduce hypnotherapy as well. And sometimes, that's the most effective tool we have. But this emotional memory image thing just really made a shift for me.
Yeah, no, I love it. So does it like bookmark something in our life, not as a negative, but as in like a protective measure? So like, say like we're, I don't know, trying to think of an example now, but say we go through something and we don't like it. So we get like slapped by an ex or something. Yeah. And then we remember that. And then so when we meet someone new, we think, oh, don't trust him because that's happened before. Is it that kind of thing? It's an emotional memory. So
kind of, but
kind
it's
of, but
more
no,
of a sense of, no, it's kind of, but it's more of a sense of you, when you meet someone new, you would feel uncomfortable and you would think there's something just not quite right, but you wouldn't know why. And it's because the emotional memory image is running below consciousness. So when we bring it conscious, it makes sense. But before that, it just sits in the background. So for anyone listening who's had anxiety before, and I remember quite a few instances of that, sometimes it can rush up on you really quickly and you genuinely have no idea what's triggered it. Now, I've found that there's these emotional memory images that have somehow been triggered that actually cause that emotion to come on. So it's almost like being a bit of a detective and just finding out what the cause is, and making it, rather being unconscious, making it conscious.
This could be some real food for thought, because I did like, I say clinical hypnotherapy, but past life regression as well. And also like when I meet someone, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about them. So I'm thinking, oh, it's a past life thing. It's my intuition, but it might not be. It might be simply something I've been exposed to in this life. And I'm still carrying that.
Absolutely. And obviously everyone is different. And when we have certain tools that we know work, I think we do tend to view it through that lens, don't we? I think that's just human nature. But the easy thing about this technique is you can tell very, very quickly if it is that or if it's not. So that's why a normal conversation is usually enough to bring it out.
I love that, because I know like when I used to do my past life regression, it's quite, it could take like an hour to induce someone down to that relaxed state. But I love the fact you can heal so quickly through conversation.
And that's one of the most attractive things about it, that it works with a degree of speed. Obviously, it's not a magic bullet. It doesn't just, you have a conversation and then all of your problems have disappeared, although that would be wonderful. But it is a way of actually making change quite effectively and quite quickly. So the easiest example that I could maybe describe in terms of how it works is someone, for example, who has a spider phobia. That's the usual example that I use. So let's say when you were 3, you were in the living room and then you saw a spider crawl on your arm, and as a 3-year-old you screamed and then cried and cried and cried and cried. So your system registers that as a threat, and your system registers the spider as a threat. So what happens is, as you go forwards, your mind stores a big scary image of a spider at a below conscious level. So even when you're 40 and you're successful, you're powerful, your business is flying, and then you see a tiny little spider, it's not the spider that you see, because it's your mind seeing that spider from when you were 3. So as soon as we interrupt that, then actually the connection to the past is disrupted, and then you can come back to being you again.
I love this. I was going to ask what other counselling tools you had when you met that time, but I think I'm done at EMI. That'll do
Yeah.
me. I love that. So were there other tips at all? I don't think you need them, if I'm honest, Danny. We could just call it a wrap, couldn't we?
Well, seeing as you mentioned your past, we did then drifted into a little bit of hypnotherapy to round it off. But the main bulk was that sort of EMI work or emotional memory image.
I absolutely love it. So what other tips and tools helped you? I know this was obviously a huge shift and you met your wife and things like that, but what other tools helped you?
I would say one of the biggest things that helped me on an ongoing basis, and it's not something that shifted my life in one day. This is something that bubbled up over a period of time, was actually changing the way I looked at challenges.
Okay.
So when I was particularly younger and I would come up against a challenge, then I would view it as negative. I would view it as being unfair. What did I do to deserve this? How has this happened? And then that would lead me into a quite a negative mindset, and I'd end up being stuck. So one of the most useful things I was taught by one of my mentors is when you're facing a challenge, actually, first of all, ask yourself, why is it happening now? So begin to shift your mindset from why is this happening to me to why is this happening for me? Yeah. And then when you've got that challenge, find out what are the benefits to you of actually having this experience. Now, a lot of people get a little bit confused here because they think benefits mean feel good. But what I mean by benefits is in terms of actually your human growth. So is it helping you be more independent? Is it pushing you to learn new things? Is it helping you to take on something you haven't managed before? So when we can view challenges through that lens, we can see our setbacks as opportunities for growth, and then we can appreciate the things that really go well. So what I found is by applying that approach, my mindset stopped being quite so volatile, like, oh, this is great, oh, this is awful, oh, this is great, to being more grounded and more level, which I find is a much more balanced way to live.
For anyone watching on YouTube, I'm taking notes as Danny's speaking, thinking, right, Shelley, why is this happening for me? Having just got COVID for the second time.
And that may require a little bit of digging for you.
I know. Then I'm going to get some EMI and I'm going to be sorted, I tell you. Because those have been following me for a while know that I had long COVID for like 11 months. And then I just turned a corner. And after 2 weeks, I thought, this is brilliant. I'm going to go return to work. And then I've got COVID again. I'm like, why is this happening for me? I've put a big bubble there and I've put benefits underneath and human growth. There we go.
It can really take some looking, and I wouldn't expect the answers to just pop up, particularly if it feels like a really big block. But you look through all the areas of life. So how is it going to be advantageous to you in terms of family life? How will it help you financially, mentally, spiritually, socially, vocationally? And if you keep circling through it, and the biggest advice for this question is don't think of it as, is there a benefit? Think of it as, what is the benefit? Because then you're kind of just aiming towards it and it will pop out.
I'm writing this all down. I feel like having therapy on air. There we go. I was like, right, thank you for my homework, Danny. That's down on paper.
And I'll see you next week and we'll review it.
Yes. I'm going to write down about the spider. I think I was about 3 when he got attacked by a spider. There you go. Attack. Probably wasn't an attack. Why did the spider happen to me? Write that down. I love this. I do actually feel like my chest is lighter. Therapy with Danny Greeves. So bless you. Challenges. I love the word challenges. And I always say, like, as you say, it's about that growth, isn't it? And the lesson in it. And it's sort of, we don't often have our greatest growth from sitting on a yoga mat and things like that. So I do love the word challenges, but the way you phrase it just made me think, my cogs are turning. I think, do the show, Shelley. But my brain's kicking over thinking, why have I got COVID again 2 weeks after I got clear the first one and things like that? And it is a really interesting process.
Yeah. And it just gets you to reflect. And when you think of it as, why is it happening for you? Then Once you get those answers, you can see, okay, this isn't actually in my way. It's just guiding me along the way. And I think that takes a lot of the sting out of the challenge, and you can kind of move forwards with it.
Yeah. And I think for
And I'm not by
me,
any way pretending that that means I wake up every day when I have a challenge and I'm full of joy and enthusiasm. It just means if I feel stuck, I know I've got a tool that I can actually work through it, and it does transform. So it's just something to have in the toolbox.
yeah, no, I absolutely love that. So people out there today, whether they've got like, I don't know, COVID, or they're struggling with anxiety or self-image and things like that, what's the one thing you would say they can do right now, right today?
The easiest thing that I can ask people to do is to first of all get a little journal or a little notebook. And I recommend just one 5-minute exercise a day. And it's again something that won't change your life in a day, but after 3 to 4 months of it, it makes a huge difference on your outlook. And it's just a simple exercise. First of all, you just write down, oh, in the last 24 hours, who or what has supported me in what I find meaningful. So you're looking for the support so you can share a gratitude. And now that's fairly common. That's something that's practiced by a lot of people, and that's your starting point. And then your second point is, in the last 24 hours, who has challenged me or what has challenged me? And then you apply the same question. So what benefits did this get for me? How is this helping me grow? And it takes 5 minutes, but if you pick the biggest thing you're grateful for and the biggest challenge in the last day, and you bring them both to a place where you can appreciate them, that actually makes quite a big difference to your emotional well-being, to your confidence, and to the belief you have in yourself.
I love that. I'm just writing it all down with my fancy pink pen, Danny.
Yeah.
I'll just say, in the last 24 hours, I'm grateful for Danny. And I think me challenges would have to be me breathing because of COVID. There you go. Talk amongst yourself, listener. I'm just writing some notes down. Not
If
even
they've got a pen
joking.
and pencil, they can be doing theirs.
Yeah,
So
join in. Do you know what? Journaling comes up so much when I say to people, like, what's one positive change you can recommend today? Journaling comes up again and again and again. And I must say, I don't do it. I don't know if it's because I'm a writer, so I do a lot of writing anyway.
Yeah.
But it can't be by coincidence that so many people say about journaling.
I think it's, first and foremost, it's one way to get something out of your head. And I think a lot of us, when we're struggling, we keep it inside. So first of all, getting it out on paper actually helps. So I was chatting with a client yesterday, and he woke up quite anxious in the morning. And so I just asked him to write it out on a bit of paper. And he wrote it out on a paper, read it aloud, and realized how ridiculous it was. But he'd been chewing that over for about 8 hours. So I think it's one way of getting things out on paper. It's a way of actually looking at a problem from a different perspective. And sometimes people do this exercise on their notes section in their phone. Sometimes they record it as an audio message so they can play it back. So journaling is the most common way, but actually just going through it in the shower would be beneficial for you. So if I can't get you to do any journaling, then actually when you're in the shower, just run through the couple of questions, and that'll be enough for you.
See, I like that, because I do wake up with quite a busy head, and I probably would find it easier just to think it and then answer the questions from that. Although I did write it down on air. I did do it there.
I mean, particularly if you do a lot of writing already, I mean, you might actually benefit from doing a different approach. So thinking for you might be the one that works for you. So I think we've all got different ways of doing things, but the tool is there. It's just how you apply it for you.
Yeah, I think when I start to write down, I'm thinking that's 25p a word I'm charging.
That would be quite nice, because it means you're paying yourself every day.
Yeah. I did do morning pages years ago. I like to move house, Danny. It's probably an issue in there that needs EMI as well. But many years ago, when I didn't live in this house, another one, I used to do morning pages. And it was really insightful that I used to like write it down. And then if I did read it back, I'd say things like, I think, I thought. And I realised in writing the morning pages, I didn't do much, but I did think a lot. Because just like, I think this, I think that. Today's thought, and I was like, you're doing a lot of thinking, love, but how much of it's actually true?
Well, that's some lovely feedback for you.
That's probably why I stepped away from it. That's probably driving myself slightly mad. But I do like the fact I could just think what has challenged me, what has supported me. So that's the listener's homework. I've already done mine on air, so that's mine. I'm ticking myself off for that.
Good tips, yeah.
Danny Greaves, you've been fabulous, but you're even more fabulous because you've got some freebies for the listeners. So tell us about that.
Yes, so as I mentioned, one of the things that I used to really struggle with is expressing myself. So the mission that I'm on is helping people to express themselves. So what I offer is like a 2-minute scorecard. So it asks you some specific questions to find out where your main challenge is. Then it gives you a personalized report with a couple of exercises to practice, and then a little hypnotherapy recording to give you a bit of a boost in the right direction. So it comes as a little 1, 2, 3 package, and you can find that on my website, which is www.dannygreevescoaching.com.
That's fabulous. And I shall put that in the show notes because people could be driving or out jogging, not me for sure. But
Yeah.
if you see me out running, I'm being chased, send for help. But
That would be the same for me as well.
Yeah. So don't worry if you're out and about. We shall stick that in the show notes. And as easy as 1, 2, 3, Danny Greaves will give you therapy just like I've had today. Danny Greaves, you're absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, especially the way that you're feeling and getting through things. So thank you so much for carrying on.
Bless you. Take care, lovely.
Bye.